Japan's military wants a record $50 billion for next year's defense budget. The hike in spending aims to beef up Tokyo's capabilities against regional threats. The military has sounded the alarm on security concerns near remote islands claimed by both Japan and China. Defense forces are also concerned about rising tensions between the mainland and Taiwan. Japan plans to build 5 military ships and a submarine, along with purchasing 12 F-35 fighter jets. It also hopes to ramp up defense capabilities against cyber threats. For a closer look, Professor Stephen Nagy joins us live from Tokyo. How does Japan's defense spending plan compared to others in the region?
Thanks, Steve, for having me. I think it's very clear that we should be comparing our defense budgets between China, South Korea, and Japan. China's defense budget increase this year is 6.8%. Our South Korean neighbors are 5.8%, and Japan's is 2.8%. And this is 2.8% of the total GDP. So Japan's actual increase compared to its regional partners is not that significant, and it's in line with, I think, the growing security demands within the region. Japan's particularly concerned about peace and stability in the Taiwan Straits. It's, of course, concerned about the East China Sea and the Senkaku Islands, as well as challenges in the South China Sea, and lastly, nuclear weapons proliferation on the Korean Peninsula.
So not a significantly huge amount of military spending compared to its neighbours, but in its efforts to bolster its arsenal, Professor Nagy, how far is this going to go then in tackling the existing security issues in the region?
Well, Japan works very closely with its partner, the United States, but it's also built security or strategic partnerships with Australia, India, and burgeoning partnerships with European countries. So what we could understand is this is more of a force multiplier. It adds value to those the broader U.S.-Japan alliance, but also those other strategic partnerships within the region. If you drill down into the budget, we see that there's investments in cyber, maritime awareness capabilities, and these are seen by the Japanese defense establishment as the key areas of concern in the next 5 to 10 years.
Just quickly, Professor, Japan has identified China as its main national security threat. What exactly is Tokyo concerned about?
Well, I think Tokyo looks at China's growing assertiveness within the region. Its issuing of the 2016 Permanent Court of Arbitration decision rejecting China's claims in the South China Sea, as well as its gray zone tactics in both the East China Sea, the South China Sea, and lastly, the adoption of a new Coast Guard law allowing for the Chinese Coast Guard to use force in its domestic waters as really being challenges to how the Japanese understand a free and open Indo-Pacific vision of a rules-based order. And I think that Japan's view is that if China was to follow and stay in line with the international law that it's already been agreed upon at the United Nations, that this increase in defense budget would likely be unnecessary. So what we're seeing is Japan reacting to a perceived assertiveness by China really in Japan's backyard. And I would like to really stress the fact that the East China Sea, the Taiwan Straits, and the South China Sea really are those critical sea lanes of communication that transport energy resources and import and export of goods in and out of the region. And that's critical to the Japanese economy. And of course, this is why they're looking at China with very clear eyes.
Well, thank you so much for your time this evening. Senior Associate Professor Stephen Nagy from the International Christian University in Tokyo.